Okay, so to build a fire is an example of this, as I said, this fiction, which is really the main theme is determinism and, if you like, control or fatalism, or really the influence of the environment and nature and naturalism and so on. So you have here really, because as maybe you know from our outline, if I can just check again because the main, where is it? Just a second. Yeah, so the novel, as you can see from our outline, it's, well, not a novel, it's a short story. It is really an embodiment of realism, naturalism, or again, impressionism, determinism, fatalism, blah, blah, blah. So it's really to do with nature and the influence of nature, or as I said here, when somebody, if you like, determines to do something, even to the extent being maybe killed or destroyed, and yet he won't stop. So the story is about this effects really of nature, the effects of determinism in at the end of the day, really, which killed the man. So that's why here I'm thinking about, or the term of, or the question I say, fatalism. So yeah, here we have a short story of somebody who wants to travel, who traveled in a very terrible, absolutely unbelievable, difficult circumstances. When it's very, very, very cold, and yet, let me show my, share my screen as well. Yeah. Yeah, you can see my screen now?
Yes, Doctor.
Yeah. So the idea here really is to see, for example, this question, how man challenges, of course, miserably challenges, wrongly challenges nature, when we know, of course, from our own real experience, if you like, or our parents' experience or a grandparents' experience, that it's impossible to challenge nature. It is impossible to challenge nature, because nature is far more superior and far more powerful than anybody. So here we have a story of a man who really started a journey when it's very, very cold and snow everywhere, and yet he went on when everybody when everybody told him that it's wrong to travel at this time. It's not suitable time to travel at this time. But he never listened, and that's why he got killed. Very simply, he did not listen, and therefore he got killed by nature. Full stop. Really, it's very simple. So here we have a narrator, a man narrator, first person narrator, or Actually, it's not a first person. Sorry, I mean a third person narrator talking about one man character hero who's supposed to be our hero, and even he is not even, as we said, he's not even named. We say just say, you know, our man, a man went into this. You know, we say he. So here you can see a lot of nice, really details about how this man went out to travel, to move from one place to another, when it's very, very, very cold, and snow, so much snow, and he was told, as I said, it's not the time to travel, wait when the weather is better. But of course, because he's a stranger and he doesn't know the consequences of this, because of his bad experience, of his maybe inexperience, really is inexperience. He has no idea. So that's why at the end of the day, he got killed. So really the idea that he, because the title to build a fire, again, of course, is symbolical here, because when he really got very, very cold, he wanted to start a fire, but that fire started, and then because of his inability even to build a fire, because that's really the main idea, his inexperience of building a fire in a circumstance like this led him to failing for the second time, and he got absolutely, you know, frozen to death. Frozen to death. Whereas his dog, he has a dog with him. Whereas his dog managed to escape, managed to run away, managed to know, managed to realize that this is not a time to travel. Even the dog, you know, the story tells us that really did not even want to go with his owner, with this man, because as if the dog was saying to him, this is not the time to travel. This is not the time to travel. But the man decided, you see, you know, I can do it. I am a man, I can do it. Yeah. But as I said, really simply, the challenge he posed, the challenge he put to nature really failed miserably, and he got killed, absolutely frozen to death, because it was so cold and he couldn't move. All his body frozen to death. Because he, as I said, he started a fire, and after 2, 3, 5 minutes, then because the way he built the fire under a tree, and a massive amount of snow fell from over his head from above the tree, and then went right on top of the fire, and it killed the fire, totally killed the fire. The, you know, the lump of snow which fell on it from the tree, because he started a fire under a tree, which is of course a very wrong thing. You should never really build a fire under a tree like that. For example, some trees, yes, but not in such a circumstance. Anyway, so really the luck and the misery and the attitude we feel here is amazing. That you know, the whole story, how he walks and how he challenges, how he faces problems, and how he convinces himself that he can manage, and how he wanted to save his life, to build a fire, as I said, then later he could not. He wanted to kill his dog because he said he could warm his hands through the skin of the dog, but still the dog ran away, did not let him do it. So, and then finally the dog waited, and then his owner died, because as we see in the snow, and the end of the story finished when he's dead and the dog ran away to where he was supposed to go, and led other people to come to find him completely, to find the owner completely frozen and dead. So yeah, to build a fire, yeah, you need experience to build a fire. You have to know how to build a fire. And I think Jack London here really gave us a very amazing story. As you can see, the narrative, we can see it's, throughout, it's really nice narrative. You can see there's hardly any dialogue. You find it completely like no dialogue, completely narration by the third person narrator, telling us about this man, always mentioning he did and he did that and so on and so forth. When we know, again, and I think this is important to see, that even the man's name is not mentioned. As I said, it's just the symbol here that this man represents all of us, human beings, people. As you can see, the short story is quite really, well, not long. It's 9 pages. It's full of absolutely graphic, strong, really lovely narrative. Of course, this is, as you know, one example of American naturalism. American, really, the question, as I said, we said the question of even impressionism to some extent, determinism, and so on and so forth. So how we say here, when we say determinism, means really when you are destined, when you are controlled, when you are dominated, when you are tuned by nature, you can't change it. You think you can, because of your arrogance as a man. Because that's the problem here with our friend. He was so arrogant, he thought he could beat everything, but you can't beat nature. You really can't beat nature. That's the question. I think it's very, very clear in every society. People, we say, you can never challenge fire and water. Nobody can challenge fire or water. Both. It is deadly to do that. Sometimes you think you can, but no. Challenging fire and water, I think, I don't know, maybe something else, I'm not sure. But these are both, I think, strong elements of nature which nobody can beat. Nobody. Yeah, maybe a small fire you can put off, a small fire. But one fire is fire, or when the water is rough and the sea is rough, or a river is rough, or, we find many people get killed thinking they can cross a valley, for example, and then they are driven with their cars and they got killed, thinking that they can, because they think they are strong. And I think we know this. We've seen this many times, isn't it? Even here in this country and in South. Huh?
I said yes, especially
Yeah.
in Oman.
Yeah. I know this happened also in Saudi. Sometimes you have these really floodings, and many boys, many young men, they like to show their adventurous thing, and they got killed. They get killed because they think, you know, they can beat nature, but it's impossible. Yeah, really, this is the idea. Our friend is exactly like that. And, you know, he wanted to, as I said, to do that. And we find at the end of the day that this man failed and his dog did not. As if to say, you know, the dog knew, the man did not. The man with his mind did not use his mind. Whereas we think the dog has no mind but has instinct. The dog survived and managed to run away and survive and to warm itself and not to die. Whereas the man died, you know? So to say here really instinct, if you like, is more powerful to suggest here. Instinct is more powerful than the mind. And I think sometimes, you know, it's really shocking and amazing how, you know, how really people sometimes, you know, miscalculate and misjudge things. Now, I would like maybe to read some of this story for you. At the end of the day, we see that the man surrendered and he couldn't do anything because he said, you know, I made a mistake, but when it was too late, absolutely too late. Now, as you can see, I think you have this highlighted edition. You can see those sections that I highlighted. I think, you know, the whole story is really a lovely story. To say, as I say, the whole narrative says the man or he, you know, we are not given his name. So notice here the beginning of the story. Day had broken cold and grey, exceedingly cold and grey, when the man turned aside from the main Yukon trail and climbed the high earth bank where a dim and little traveled trail led eastward through the fat spruce timberland. Of course, you know, you can see from the picture that the writer is drawing. So this man is traveling in a really mountainous, if you like, or like a woody area, woody area. It's like a forest, and then, you know, traveling from one area to another. And he said the main Yukon Trail, which is the Yukon area in one, you know, these mountainous areas in America. And that's why the car here that we have, for example, they have this car called Yukon, which is from the GMC company. It's a name again, Yukon, really is originally one of those tribal Indian names. The Red Indian names used, in fact, many names used still from American or Red Indian or American Indian background. So you can see really the way the lovely description of the scenery. It was a steep bank, and he paused for breath at the top, excusing the act of himself by looking at his watch. It was 9 o'clock. There was no sun, nor hint of sun, though there was not a cloud in the sky. It was a clear day, and yet there seemed an intangible pall over the face of things, a subtle gloom that made the day dark, and that was due to the absence of the sun or of sun. This fact did not worry the man. He was used to the lack of sun. It had been days since he had seen the sun, and he knew that a few more days must pass before that cheerful orb due south would just peep above the skyline and dip immediately from view. Now, really here, the narrator, if you like, you can see here really the description, the lovely description of the atmosphere and the lack of sun. You see, it's clear day. Well, it's a day, but when it's clear day, where is the sun then? Where is the sun? And when you say it's 9 o'clock, I mean, where is it? 9 o'clock in the morning or the evening? Yeah. So as if he's really traveling, if you like, traveling in the north, very, very north parts of America, like maybe something towards the very end of land in maybe Northern America, could be Canada, could be Alaska, could be, the northern parts of for example, the continent, when sometimes you have days and days with no sun, because I think there are some areas in places sometimes in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, sometimes you have periods of days and months without the sun. And sometimes, which is really because of the very, very end, or you have many days with long days, and sometimes very small nights, and so on. It depends on the rotation of the globe, really, the idea here that he's saying this. So when he's saying 9 o'clock, we don't know. Again, is he saying it was 9 in the morning or in the evening? But when he said there was no sun, really he wanted to say this is, of course, in the morning, but yet there's no sun. Again, he said there's no cloud in the sky. It's very clear. So where is the sun? Well, the sun doesn't show, because we have here long days, maybe weeks without sun, So that's why he said subtle gloom, dark day, or day dark, the absence of the sun, no sun. So here the idea to say, in such really amazing, difficult circumstances, you can't challenge nature. You really can't challenge nature, And here the man, of course, is so proud of himself, as I said, because again, I think one of the reasons that he has no experience, he's been a newcomer to the area, and he thought he can do it. The man flung a look back along the way he had come. The Yukon lay mile wide and hidden under the 3 feet of ice. Wow. 3 feet, which means nearly 1 meter. 1 meter deep snow, ice. On top of this ice were as many feet of snow. It was all pure white, rolling in gentle undulations where the ice jams of the freeze up had formed, north and south, as far as his eye can see. It was unbroken white, save for a dark hairline that curved and twisted from around the spruce-covered island to the south, and that curved and twisted away into the north, where it disappeared behind another spruce-covered island. The dark hairline was the trail, the main trail, you know. So this is, the trail here means really the land he was supposed to travel on, you know, the road he wants to travel. But you can't see anything because it's all covered with snow. Maybe only because of the trees, because they are high, you know, you could see the trees, so you could see the sign that the road is there. You can see this, you know, the dark hairline was the trail, the main trail that led south 500 miles to the Chilcote Pass or Dai, the salt water, and that led north 70 miles to Dawson, and still on to the north 1,000 miles to Nulato, and finally to St. Michael on Bering Sea, 1,500 miles. And you know, you can imagine, of course, Bering Sea, of course, as I said, going up north, you know, towards the really the northern parts of the hemisphere. So really this is, you know, we can see the absolutely difficult circumstances, the place, the horrible time for travel. Horrible time for travel. Snow 1 meter deep. 1 meter deep. Come on. Stay home. Stay home. This is not the time to travel. Yeah. But all this, the mysterious far-reaching hairline trail, the absence of the sun from the sky, the tremendous cold, the strangeness of weirdness of all, you know, as you can see here, the narrator says, the newcomer, you know, this is the idea. He was a newcomer to the land, right? And again, at Chikukaku or something, I don't know what's that. And this is again one of those Indian, red Indian tribal names, maybe. So he's a newcomer to the area. He doesn't know. And it's, if you are a newcomer to an area, you should not challenge the area because you have no experience. The trouble with him was that he was without imagination. Yes, this is it. Our friend has no imagination. He was quick and alert in the things of life, but only in the things and not in the significances. Yeah. I think this is also one of the messages here. It's not enough to be good in things. You have to know, and you have to be good in the significant parts of the thing that you know. You should know the significance, he said. Yeah, without imagination again. And again, you can see here, you know, he knew, he thought he knew, but no, notice here, not in the significances. Notice, not in the significance. And that's really one of the terrible things that people think sometimes when you are so arrogant and so cocky and you think you know, but really you don't. Notice. 50 degrees below zero remain 80 odd degrees of frost. 50 degrees below zero. Yes. Such fact impressed him as being cold and uncomfortable. That was all. It did not lead him to meditate upon the frailty of a creature as a creature of temperature, and upon man's frailty in general, able only to live within certain narrow limits of heat and cold. Yeah. So we should know that our bodies are made, for example, to exist in a certain condition, under certain conditions, certain temperature, certain whatever, all these. So here really, he couldn't believe, or he couldn't think that you have a limited, as a human being, you have a limited, condition. There are limits to your body and your life. You can't exist anywhere. You can't exist everywhere. Especially here, you can say the limits of hot and cold, the limits of heat and cold. So here, this man really, did not know the significance. And notice the word frailty. Frailty. Yes. Frailty. Yeah, means weakness. Weakness. People think are, like giants, or like, very powerful and supermen and superpower. But they can be killed by a little mosquito. Look at the corona thing these days. Huh? The whole world is devastated by this little thing called corona. Isn't it? Yeah. So the human being, and here the idea that, yeah, humans are weak. We have a certain limit to in our bodies and our power. So this man really was ignorant about this, and he thought he can do everything. So, that's why he did not bother. As he turned on to go, he spat speculatively. There was a sharp, explosive crackle that startled him. He spat again and again in the air before it could fall to the snow. The sprittle crackled. He knew that a 50 below sprittle crackled. Yeah, undoubtedly, I don't know, maybe he's repeating that again. Yeah, undoubtedly, it was colder than 50 below. How much colder he did not know. But the temperature did not matter. He was bound for the old claim to the left fork of Henderson Creek. So, the idea really, I want to say that he didn't care, he thought he can do it. He can do it. But of course, he was wrong, Here, notice the narrator talks about his dog, notice. At the man's heels trotted a dog, a big native husky, the proper wolf dog, gray-coated and without any visible of the temperamental difference from its brother, the wild wolf. The animal was depressed by the tremendous cold. It knew that it was no time for travel. Its instinct told it a truer story, a truer tale that was told to the man by the man's judgment. So you see, here what I said to you about the question that he knew really. The dog knew that it's not time for traveling by instinct. And that's why we said at the end that he survived. And again, the question here, when you say that he was like the kind of dog, or the dog here is a kind of wolf dog, really to say that he's, the dog naturally brought up, you know, in the wilderness or in the wild, and therefore naturally knew how to survive, the instinct. And that's why here, you know, the short story really highlights that instincts wins at the end of the day, unlike the mind. The dog did not know anything about temperatures. Possibly in its brain there was no sharp consciousness of a condition very cold, such as man was, such as was in the man's brain. But the brute had its instinct. You see? So this is the idea that the dog, yes, maybe has no mind. The dog didn't know much about temperatures and about the science of temperatures, but it has its own instincts. And its instincts is saying, this is the wrong time to travel. It experienced a vague and menacing apprehension that subdued it and made it slink along at man's heels. That made it question eagerly very unwanted movement of the man, as if expecting him to go into camp or to seek shelter somewhere and build a fire. The dog had learned fire, and it wanted fire, or else to burrow under the snow and cuddle its warmth away from the air. Yeah. So here, you know, you can see that the dog knew fire, experienced fire, and knew fire to give him warmth, you know, in such horrible weather. If a dog can't find fire, you know, he said that it can dig deep into the ground and, you know, try to cuddle itself and to warm itself in earth to keep itself from cold air, which is sensible, you know. And really, this is an amazing thing, as I said here. Again, as I said, the dog really did not want to go, but he forced him. And notice here, notice, the dog dropped in again at his heels, and with a tail drooping discouragement. And the man swung along the creek bed. The furrow of the old lead trail was plainly visible, but a dozen inches of snow covered the marks of the last number, etc. So you can see here that the dog really originally, as I said, never wanted to go. But, you know, he, as I said, he made him, and even he, you know, hit him to make him move with him. Notice he was not much given to thinking. Just then particularly had nothing to think about, save that he would eat lunch at the Forks, and that at 6 o'clock he would be in camp with the boys. So this is the crazy man's idea, that he wants to go to his friends, and that's it. He wants to go to them, you know, no matter what. He wants to go there to enjoy the camp with his friends. There was nobody to talk to, and had there been, speech would have been impossible because of the ice nozzle on his mouth. So he continued monotonously to chew tobacco. So he was chewing tobacco, of course, to keep himself a little bit hot, maybe. Yeah. And really, you can see a lot of details. Really, I can't read all the thing for you here, but I'll read some bits and pieces here to tell you. Notice here, empty as the man's mind was of thoughts. Again, notice the narrator always suggested that this man is really stupid. He never even thought about things. Really, he should have given more to thinking, you know. So that's why really he failed. And that's why here he was described many times as empty-minded, or he has no really sense whatsoever. You know, even he was advised by somebody, of course, I don't know where, maybe the man told him not to go at this time. But of course, you know, he would not listen. So here, of course, as you can see, he wanted to build a fire. Notice in this section, notice. That was why he had he had shielded in such panic. He had left and give under his feet and heard the crackle of a snow-hidden ice skin, and so on. You can see here that he would want to stop. He should stop, according even to the mentality of the dog, thinking that this man is crazy. He should build a fire instead of walking. And again, he was really amazed by its owner. Notice here, he compelled the dog to go on in front. The dog did not want to go. It hung back until the man shoved it forward, and then it went quickly across the white, unbroken surface. It made quick efforts to lick the ice off its legs, then dropped down in the snow and began to bite out the ice that had formed between its toes, or the toes. This was a matter of instinct. To permit the ice to remain would mean sore feet. It did not know this. It merely obeyed the mysterious prompting that arose from the deep crypts of its being. You see, here again, the idea of instinct. The dog had no idea except his instinct. The dog walked in the ice and quickly started to clean its own feet, lick its own feet, because it knew that if he did not do that, his feet will be frozen. So the idea I'm saying here, the narrator is saying instinct, all the time talking about the instinct. And this is what we call about the question of determinism and fatalism and, you know, naturalism and nature and so on, the challenge of nature. And that's why the dog survived and the man died. Here you can see, he said, the dog obeyed the mysterious prompting that arose from the deep crypts of its being, from deep, deep down inside him. He knew that these things should be cleaned, otherwise he would die of snow. And, you know, there are a lot of things here. For example, the next paragraph, he wanted to, you know, notice, the dog was disappointed and turned back toward the fire. This man did not know cold. Possibly all the generations of his ancestry had been ignorant of cold, of real cold, of cold 170 degrees below freezing point, but the dog knew. Yeah. All its ancestry knew, and it had inherited the knowledge. And it knew that it was not good to walk abroad in such fearful cold. It was the time to lie snug in a hole in the snow and wait for a curtain of cloud to be drawn across the face of outer space whence this cold came. On the other hand, there was no keen intimacy between the dog and the man. Really, this paragraph here is absolutely important. The narrator is comparing between the dog and the man. The dog knew everything, the man did not. You see, that's when he's saying no intimacy. There's no really they are not similar, meaning the dog is far superior than the man in terms of knowing that this is not the time to travel. This is not the time to travel. But the dog couldn't say it to him. You know, that's the idea. There was no keen intimacy between the dog and the and the man. The one was the toil slave of the other, and the only caresses it had ever received were the caresses of a whiplash and the harsh and menacing throat sounds that threatened the whiplash. Yeah, what a terrible thing. He's saying the only relationship, the only understanding between the dog and its owner is beating the dog, whipping the dog. Whipping, the whiplash. This is the only relation, the only communication is to beat your dog, to whip your dog, harsh and menacingly, throat sounds that threatened the whiplash. So the dog made no effort to communicate its apprehension to the man. Poor dog, how could he tell him? The dog made no effort to tell its owner no. It was not concerned in the welfare of the man. It was for its own sake, and it yearned back toward the fire. But the man whistled and spoke to it with a sound of whiplashes, and the dog swung in at the man's heel and followed after. Yeah, so the dog, it's a shame that the dog had to obey its owner. As if to say here, as you can see the narrator, really the dog at the end of the day said, the dog didn't care about the man because the man is crazy, but the dog is worried about himself. But he can't run away because he's honest. If you like, he's loyal to his master. And dogs are like that. Even if you hit your dog, the dog will remain loyal to you. Dogs are very loyal to their masters. Dogs are very loyal to their masters. Even if you hit your dog, the dog will run away for a while, and then you whistle to your dog, the dog will come back. Because dogs are loyal to their masters. And here the dog, as if to say, well, my master is stupid, but I have to go with him because he's my master. Isn't it? Really, this is the idea, if you like. And of course, the man miserably, if you like, really died. So here we have about the example of about the old man tried to hear the man, he was advised by other men, but he didn't listen. Notice here the narrator tells us about it here. The old man, the old timer on Sulphur Creek, had told him about it, the previous fall, and now he was appreciating the advice. Yeah. So he was told, he was advised not to travel in this time, but he did not listen. Again, here you can see here about trying the question of building a fire. To build a fire, he had been forced to remove its mittens. And I think here in this section, really, it's a lovely, please read everything, really, because it's absolutely lovely to see how he built the fire. And the minute the fire started, really the fire died out immediately. Notice here, for example, the man was shocked. It was as though he had just heard his own sentence of death. For a moment, he sat and started at the spot where the fire had been. Then he grew very calm. Perhaps the old timer on Sulphur Creek was right. If he had only had a trail mate, he had been in no danger now. The trail mate could have built the fire. Another mistake. Another mistake that this man had done is he had no company. He had no company. He did not take any friend with him, except his dog, of course. But his dog is not a human being who maybe will help. And I think that's what a very, very, very bad mistake. When you challenge here, of course, like this, when you want to challenge nature or anything, you should not do it on your own. You should have somebody with you. At least one more person to be with you in case of danger, in case of problems, in case of things. So here the story tells us this man made horrible mistakes, and not having anybody with him was one of his, who I think, next to being absolutely wrong to have traveled at this time. And I think this is, the narrator here is suggesting that.
Excuse me, doctor?
Yeah?
What about the idea, sorry for interrupting you, I had this idea.
Yeah.
What about the idea that the company of the dog is very much enough because he is already smart and he has this instinct that able to guide this man? Because sometimes people are not able to help like the dog himself did. So what about this idea?
Yeah, but the dog, Ghaida, thank you very much. But Ghaida, the dog could not save him. Isn't it?
Yeah, because because he was not listening to the signs, to the things that he's trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. So the dog, as if to say, the dog wanted to tell him that this is not the time to go. Let's go back. And the dog tried many times. I mean, in his own way, of course, in his own doggy way, if you like. But a human being, a man or a woman with him, or other two, let's say one person, more people, 2, 3 people would definitely help each other. They will not die, the 3 of them, for example, or 3, 4 people will not die together, unless, it would be absolutely devastating to all of them. So the idea really, the dog can help, but the dog has its own limits, not like when you have somebody else with you. The narrator really is saying, when you travel like this in a dangerous area, you should never travel on your own. You should never travel on your own. Take somebody with you. Take company with you. So this is one of the advice, I think one of the pieces of advice that the man told him, not to travel on your own. Not to travel on your own. Take somebody with you, but he did not. So really, this is the idea that is, I think, very clear. And as I said, the dog can help in some way, The dog can help in some way, but a dog is a dog. You know, human beings, I think in this way, I think human beings are more in this way here useful than anything else. So like here, for example, you know, a dog can't start a fire. Whereas another man, another friend, another woman, another person maybe could start a new fire. But how can a dog start a fire? You know? So this is the idea, because really the idea, remember the story, to build a fire. You know, the whole story is the title, to build a fire. If he was able to build a fire, he would have saved himself, you know? So really, this is the idea here. You can see this going on, I think, in a very lovely way, really. Again, notice here, the old timer on Sulphur Creek was right. He thought in the moment of controlled despair that ensued after 50 below, a man should travel with a partner. You see, this is, again, he said that. A man should travel with a partner. Look at it. You know, this is the idea. He told him that. He beat his hands. He failed in exercising any sensation. Suddenly, he bared both hands. And here he, you know, tells us more and more and more how he wants to start a fire. But he could not, because it was too cold and frozen to even move. And you can see here, he's saying the old Sulphur Creek, the old man, the old timer, you know, people with experience, told him, don't go on your own. Take a partner. A dog is not enough. And of course, he's saying that's the idea there. Notice again here in this section, which is really very funny here, the highlighted one. Here, how the man started to think to kill his dog, to warm his hands in the body of the, in the skin or the body of the dead dog, because he thinks that the dog is warm enough, which is a crazy idea. The sight of the dog put a wild idea into his head. He remembered the tale of the man caught in a blizzard who killed a deer or a steer and crawled inside the carcass, and so was saved. He would kill the dog and bury his hands in the warm body until the numbness went out of them. I mean, this is really crazy, isn't it? To kill your dog, to warm your hands in the body of the dog. No, means you are bankrupt. You have bankrupted, isn't it? It's absolutely bankrupt. That's a wrong, absolutely wrong decision. And he wanted to kill the dog. What a stupid thing. And the funny thing is, the dog knew this. Notice, something was the matter, and its suspicious nature sensed danger. It knew not what danger, but somewhere, somehow, in its brain arose an apprehension of the man. It flattened its ears down to the sound of the man's voice and its restless hunting movements and the liftings and the shiftings and so on. So the dog knew, again, by instinct, that the man is going to kill him. So he ran away. You know, notice this unusual posture again excited suspicion, and the animal sidled menacingly away. You know, really, it's funny. Finally, of course, the dog came back because it will not let him go, and the man reached a situation when he could not move anymore, and he decided to sit down and die, which is really amazing. And the dog came back to him, of course. And really, this is the story here at the end of this. And all the time, the dog ran with him at his heels. When he fell down a second time, it curled its tail over its forefeet and sat in front of him, facing him, curiously eager and intent. The warmth and security of the animal angered him, and he cursed it till it flattened down its ears appallingly. This time the shivering came more quickly upon the man. He was losing in his battle with the frost. It was creeping into his body from all sides. The thought of it drove him on, but he ran no more than 100 yards or 100 feet when he staggered and pitched headlong. It was his feet. It was his last panic. When he had recovered his breath and stroll, he sat up and entertained in his mind the conception of meeting death with dignity. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Meeting his death with dignity? What dignity? What dignity? What are you talking about, man? Dignity? What do you mean? Huh? To face death with dignity. MashaAllah, ya Habibi. Isn't it? However, the conception did not come to him in such terms. His idea of it was that he had been making a fool of himself, running around like a chicken with its head cut off. Such was the simile that occurred to him. Well, he was bound to freeze anyway, and he might as well take it decently. With this newfound peace of mind came the first glimmerings of drowsiness. A good idea, he thought, to sleep off to death. It was like salting an anesthetic. Freezing was not so bad as people thought. There were lots of worse ways to die. This is like the parable of the dog and the grapes, the sour grapes. Yeah, because he couldn't do anything. He said, "Okay, I might die. I might face die in a nice way and face death courageously, and say, yeah, there are worse cases of death. At least I'm dying of frozen, of being frozen." You know, really, it's really funny. It's really, again, is amazing to try here to convince himself that his death is okay, when of course that's not true. Really, this is the end of it. As you can see here, the last thing, notice. Then the man drowsed off into what seemed to him the most uncomfortable and satisfying sleep he had ever known. The dog sat facing him and waiting. The brief day drew to a close in a long, slow twilight. There came no signs of a fire to be made, and besides, never in the dog's experience had it known a man to sit like that in the snow and make no fire. As the twilight drew on, its eager yearning for the fire mastered it, and with a great lifting and shifting of forefeet, it whined softly, then flattened its ears down in anticipation of being chidden by the man. But the man remained silent. Later, the dog whined loudly, and still later it crept close to the man and called the scent of death. This made the animal bristle and back away. A little longer it delayed, howling under the stars that leaped and danced and shone brightly in the cold sky. Then it turned and trotted up the trail in the direction of the camp. It knew where were the other food providers and fire providers. So the dog went to other people who would give him fire and who would give him food. Yeah, really, it's an amazing story, boys and girls, and I think that's enough. There are many things you can really discuss here. I will leave it for you to, if you need any question to discuss it, we can talk about it, no problem, next time. But as for today, I think that's enough. Thank you for being there, and I'll stop recording.